Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the debrief show. Some nice and exciting topics to cover following on from last weekend's very interesting, very competitive, very tight Grand Prix at Bahrain. Certainly, we got what we were looking for in terms of the battle between Mercedes and Red Bull. As a Formula One fan, I'm very, very happy with how that went. Obviously, if there were a few additional laps at the end of the race, we could have had even more fun and games, and who knows how it would have ended. But Lewis Hamilton remains supreme. He is not the world champion, seven-time world champion for no reason, and he showed very, very clearly what he's all about. So that was a great win for him. Um, it brings us to the topic of today's show, or one of the main topics I want to cover, and that is an interesting quote from Nelson Piquet, where he's talking about how Verstappen would smash, I think he used the word smash, Hamilton if he were driving a Mercedes. So I will touch on that a little bit later. Firstly, what I would like to do is actually discuss the race itself and how that went and the current standings and what the current view is on everything associated with the race. So the main item we have, of course, is that Hamilton won the Grand Prix, and yes, he beat Verstappen. I think it was 7/10 of a second in the end. So it was certainly a very tight race. Good win for Hamilton. How was the race actually won? And a lot of this, in my opinion, comes down to the pit stop. Nice image of the pit stop just on the screen there. So Hamilton pitted earlier on his first pit stop, substantially earlier, I would say. And you could see that Red Bull were really caught out. They did not know how to handle this. They had no idea what they should do to get around this idea, and so they considered leaving Max out longer, and that didn't quite work out. And by the time they finally figured out what they needed to do, unfortunately, it was no longer a runner, and so they lost track position. That always meant that we were set up for an end of race where Max would be coming through quite quickly and was potentially going to catch Hamilton. That's exactly what did happen. He caught Hamilton. He had him overtaken for maybe two corners, but in doing so, he did so illegally, or at least that's what we're hearing. Yes, he did go off the track. It was the controversial turn number 4 that he went off at. And according to the rules, you can't overtake another driver by being off the track. If you look back at the replays of the overtake maneuver, Hamilton was, he was clearly on track, whereas Verstappen, I would say more than 3/4 of his car was ahead of Hamilton, and he still drove off the track. So I don't even think there is an argument to be made for him being run off the track, if you know what I mean. So yeah, that's unfortunately just the way it is. Looking further back the field, who stood out the most? Okay, there are a few drivers, in my opinion, that didn't stand out. One of those being Valtteri Bottas. So Valtteri came third. He did not challenge for second place. Would he have been challenged if Perez had a proper race? That's the big question that I have. That's the big unknown here. I personally, I would worry about Bottas, especially if Perez manages to piece everything together. So Bottas finished in third place. Perez managed to finish in fifth place. Now this is a fifth place despite the fact that he started in last. Actually, let's piece it all together. So he qualified in 11th, and then he ended up losing power on his way to the grid within the formation lap. So the rest of the cars actually had to go around for an additional formation lap because of this. He managed to get the car going again, so Control Alt Delete or whatever it was he needed to hit inside the car got back to the pits, and so had a pit start, which was very lucky because at one point in time it looked like his race was completely over and this just wasn't going to happen. So he did get going. He's pitted early for hard tires, and yeah, he was basically working his way through the field. He did pit for a second pit stop. I was starting to wonder if he was going to try and do it on one pit stop for the entire race, but no, he did pit a second time. And he had quite a lot of speed, and he has very good tire management as well. He is getting used to this Red Bull car, so that is a factor. But already you can see throughout the sessions of last weekend, he was much closer to Verstappen than I would say Gasly or Albon were over the last 2 years, which is a positive sign. And he has to grow into the car a little bit and get used to it. Now, I don't think if Red Bull has a world title winning car that Perez is going to win it over Verstappen. Let's make that very, very clear. I think this is Verstappen's to lose if that is the case. But I think okay, Hamilton may be under a little bit of pressure. Well, Hamilton even outperforms an excellent Mercedes car. But Bottas is going to feel the pressure big time. So Bottas won't be at the races. He won't be fighting with Perez and with Verstappen the same way that Hamilton will be if he continues in the same run of form that he has at the moment. And that's the big concern I have about Bottas. So yes, his pit strategy was compromised during the race last Sunday. That's clear, and he wasn't happy about that. But before he was put onto this alternative pit strategy, he was still nowhere close to Hamilton. So let's not confuse ourselves and say that he had a chance of doing this. So yeah, very, very disappointing once again from Bottas. He has clearly the best or second best car. We're not exactly sure how that plays out yet. I guess the fact the race took place in Bahrain interests me a lot because Mercedes generally aren't their best at the hotter tracks. And so to me that says that maybe there's a little bit of additional speed there to be had. So that's in itself, I guess, an interesting concept. But there you go. Okay, let me see. What else do we need to talk about? Looking down through the order, Lando Norris in 4th place. A brilliant result from Lando Norris. Very, very impressive, I must say. Yeah, that is exactly what he needs to show in the McLaren, and it looks like they have made a slight step forward from last year. So very good news for them. In 5th place, as we mentioned, we had Sergio Perez. 6th place, then we had Charles Leclerc. And from Charles, that was an excellent race result for him. Ferrari looks better than last year. The engine looks better. It's nowhere near 2019 fast, but he had a very good race to finish where he did, and he actually split the McLarens, which is no tall order. So the Ferrari, that was a good result. And further down we can see that it was Carlos Sainz in 8th place. And of course we had Daniel Ricciardo coming in 7th in his first race. So there are a couple of factors. And once again, let me come back to the first race in a new car for these drivers. And so that's certainly the case for Daniel Ricciardo. That's the case for Carlos Sainz. That's the case for Sergio Perez. And ironically, we had all of those drivers in around the same-ish position. 5th, 6th, 7th. 5th, 7th, 8th. Of course, Charles Leclerc in the mix as well, just to split them up. I think it was a solid performance from Daniel Ricciardo and Carlos Sainz. Obviously, they'll be disappointed to lose out to their teammates. They always will be. But they were well established. They were in the points. They had a solid race weekend, and they're getting more and more integrated into their teams. So very good from them. And then in 9th place we have Yuki Tsunoda, and in 10th place we have Lance Stroll. And I'll discuss Yuki Tsunoda in a couple of minutes. Lance Stroll in 10th place. So the Aston Martin is clearly struggling, which is a shame. But that's the nature of the beast, unfortunately. So between Mercedes and Aston Martin, it appears that those were the two cars that suffered the most from the changes to the aero regulations. Um, yeah, I don't really know what to say. It's all the low rake versus high rake and all the conversation that's been happening now for over the last week. Aston Martin will feel particularly aggrieved about this. A lot of other teams will feel vindicated by this because they'll say, well, if you're going to be copying the Mercedes car so closely, then you pay the price when it goes wrong accordingly. So that's where they're at. Um, who else do we have? Yeah, Yuki Tsunoda. So coming back to Yuki Tsunoda finished ninth. Once again, his first race with the team, his rookie season. So winning rookie on the day. Very good. He beat his teammate as well on his first race. Unfortunately, Pierre Gasly had a horrific race. He lost the front wing early on in a tussle, and pretty much ended up driving around at the back of the circuit for the majority of the race. Definitely not what he will have wanted. Looking further afield, so just outside the points, we had Kimi Räikkönen, followed by his teammate Giovinazzi. So once again showing the Ferrari engine is much better this year than it was last year. So that's a solid result for Alfa Romeo, who were probably the second worst, third worst team, give or take, with Haas last year. A lot of that, I think, really did come down to the engine. And then further down the field, we had Ocon, we had Russell, we had Vettel, very bad race from Vettel, and then finally we had Mick Schumacher, Pierre Gasly, Latifi, and Mazepin, or whatever you want to call him, didn't finish the race. And I'm definitely missing one more driver off that list. I can't remember who he is right now. But yeah, it was a poor showing from the Haas car. Difficult first race for Mick Schumacher, but yeah, that's the nature of the beast, as I keep saying over and over and over again. Anyway, okay, so. From there, let me move to the next news story that I had, and this is coming back to the comments by Nelson Piquet. So Nelson Piquet, ex-Formula One world champion, and he has spoken about the fact that he believes Verstappen would smash Hamilton if they were in the same car, and I think he was speaking specifically about the Mercedes, and how if they were both in the Mercedes, that Verstappen would smash Hamilton. So there are a lot of angles you can approach this comment from. I will just say straight out, I don't necessarily believe that comment because, of course, in my opinion, the Red Bull was actually the better car last weekend for the Bahrain Grand Prix, and it was actually the other way around. So we saw Hamilton finish ahead of Verstappen. Now, throughout the pre-season testing and also in the free practice sessions and even in qualifying, we saw that Red Bull was faster than Mercedes. Was Mercedes a faster race car? Well, it finished first, so the technical answer is yes, it was faster. However, we saw the speed that Verstappen had. We saw how easily he was able to reel in Hamilton when he really needed to reel him in. He was catching him at some points over a second a lap in pace. So that was really, really fast. That Red Bull definitely has pace. So I won't hear it at the moment unless I see further evidence to the contrary. But at the moment, I do not think that Verstappen would have smashed Hamilton if they were in the same cars. Verstappen and Red Bull probably really need to look at themselves and realize where they went wrong in the strategy, because they were beaten on the strategy at the Bahrain Grand Prix. This is a bad result where Red Bull should have won, in my opinion. But let us know in the comments what you think about this. I know that Piquet also went in with let's call it a two-footed tackle on Rosberg as well, and spoke about how bad Rosberg was and how bad Hamilton was, that he got that he got beaten by Rosberg. Once again, I don't agree with that either. I think Rosberg was a very solid driver. He was a very good driver. He showed it in the Williams. He showed it in a few other cars. He was a talented driver. Definitely not at the level of Hamilton, but he played the game with Hamilton, and we've seen that Bottas has not been able to come near Hamilton, but Rosberg was able to do it. So Rosberg is a good driver. Also, Rosberg did not make Schumacher look very good at all. Now, I know Schumacher was back from retirement and was definitely not the same Schumacher that we saw previously, but Rosberg also beat him. Rosberg is a good driver, was a good driver, in my opinion. Um, he was in the best car, and he won the world title against the best driver. So I don't believe in arguments about luck. I don't believe in talking about the fact that Hamilton had more car failures and everything else like that, because if you look back at the other seasons prior to that, it was the other way around. Rosberg had the worst luck, and could he have challenged for the world title? The answer is yes, he could. He was much closer than Bottas ever was. So let's just say from my side, the argument is closed. But send us comments. Let us know if you disagree. If you have any thoughts of your own, would be hugely interested to hear about this. Yeah, it's an interesting topic, that's for sure. Now, next on the list, I would like to talk about Honda. So Honda are now going to consider a more aggressive approach to its engine power deployment moving forward with the season. Okay, if you're at Mercedes, I think you're officially scared on hearing this. The Honda looked really good. As I said, pre-season testing, qualifying, free practice sessions, even in the race, it looked good. We saw some very strong times as well from the AlphaTauris, so that Honda engine is certainly much improved over what they had last year. So I assume when they're talking about this, they're talking about upping the power and potentially risking more engine failures. And so this probably has a bigger impact to later on in the season, where they will run out of usable engines and need to take penalties and everything. Theoretically, I'm speaking now, because of course it may not even turn out that way. Yeah, challenging Mercedes, whenever it's been put up to them in the past, and we've seen Ferrari do this in 2019, Mercedes have come back with the answer, the ultimate answer. 2019, despite the fact that Ferrari were or appeared to have been doing something illegal, and of course we don't know what that was, they came back in 2020 with possibly the fastest and the best car that we've ever seen in the history of Formula One. So if they're being pushed by Red Bull, I don't want to know what's going to happen on the Mercedes side, because they seem to have, I wouldn't say an equal and opposite reaction. It's more like a greater opposite reaction that we've seen in the past from Mercedes. But once again, it's another aspect we really need to watch. But it's not going to be as easy as it has been in the past, because of course we have the token system that's come into play. So Mercedes can't be making non-stop tweaks and spending lots of money and investing in this constantly. So that is an aspect that needs to be factored in there as well. So yeah, that's what we have. But looking forward to the next few races, certainly if Honda are going to step it up, you would have to assume that there is a little bit more juice in the Mercedes engine as well, and they will in turn step it up, and probably leave the other teams further behind, unless Mercedes roll out the ramping up of power to the likes of McLaren and Aston Martin and all the rest, which means we're going to kind of end up where we are at the moment after the Bahrain Grand Prix. So we have just under 2 weeks to go to the next race. That is the one in, I think it's Imola is next. and looking forward to that very much, of course, based on what we've seen so far. Moving to the next topic that I wanted to speak about, and this now is where we move from Honda engines to Yuki Tsunoda. And so we've seen comments from the likes of Ross Brawn where they said Tsunoda is Formula One's best rookie for years. Yeah, maybe he is. Maybe he is. He's certainly a very exciting talent. And so let's go all the way back to the Formula Two season from last year. And so in the Formula Two season, Sonoda was in contention right up to the end for the world title. Now, I can't remember him actually having the lead of the world championship, but he, he was a major factor right up to the end. And he really just got eliminated from the world title fight at the last weekend where we had the two races. Um, he was very fast in certain races, and what usually happened was he would have a really good weekend or a really bad weekend. And the weekends he was good, he was untouchable. He won races. He was supremely fast. Um, and then the weekends where it didn't work for him, it just didn't work for him. And I seem to remember in the last weekend of the Formula Two Championship last season, where he was really on a charge and he looked very good, very fast, and the tires just fell away and he dropped down through the field, and with that he dropped out of world title contention. But good move from Red Bull, getting him into the AlphaTauri seat. I think it's the right move for them. Ironic, really, that Honda have announced that they're leaving Formula One at the end of this season, the same season that a Japanese driver comes in, and really, you would feel like that's the dream ticket for them to have a high achieving, potential future world champion driver in their car. But unfortunately, yeah, it's not how things are working out, and that's just the way it is. Um, whether or not we'll see Honda remain as a customer engine supplier or anything like that in the future, not fully sure about that. Definitely with the budget cap and the rule changes and everything else that comes into play from next season onwards, there's potential for that. But yeah, formally and officially, they're out at the end of this season. And then moving on from Yuki Tsunoda, and so keeping in mind Formula 2, of course we have the Formula 2 Championship, which is also ongoing. And so last weekend we actually had 3 races. So we had the 2 sprint races on the Saturday and the feature race on Sunday ahead of the Formula 1 race. And it was very enjoyable, I have to say. Really enjoyable. Now, we had 3 different race winners, and the format is definitely mixed up in how they go about doing this. So the way it works is, as I said, we have the 2 sprint races on the Saturday and Sunday. So on Friday you have qualifying. Qualifying dictates the grid for the feature race on Sunday, and then for the first sprint race on Saturday, from 10th to 1st, you have a reverse grid situation. If you qualified 11th on Friday, you start on 11th on Saturday. And then, depending on where you finish in the first sprint race, it is once again 1st to 10th, a reverse grid for the second sprint race that takes place on Saturday. And then, of course, we come to the feature race on Sunday, which is all about the qualifying. And so we saw, as I said, we saw 3 different race winners. It is Guangyao Zhao, the Renault slash Alpine, I can't say Renault anymore, the Alpine driver, who is currently leading the World Championship. So he actually won the feature race on Sunday, and well done to him for that. And he was also quite consistent, I suppose is the word, through the other races, the sprint races. And consistency is what's going to win the Formula 2 World Championship. We've seen that last year. So Mick Schumacher, he didn't win as many races as his teammate, but he was consistently finishing in the top 5 or on the podium. He had quite a run of podiums, if I remember correctly. and that is how he won. He won the World Championship in the end. And of course, we've seen that he has subsequently been promoted to Formula One via the Haas team. And even this week, we're hearing that it's not a sponsorship issue with Haas. That's not why Schumacher is in the Haas car. It is because Ferrari want him in the Haas car, and Schumacher, of course, is a part of the Ferrari Academy. So he has been promoted into Formula One, which is fair to say. So as I said, we have Guan Yao Zhou is leading the World Championship, and in second place we have Liam Lawson, who is from New Zealand, and this is his rookie season in Formula 2, and he was very impressive as well in the F2 3 rounds that took place the last weekend. He actually finished the sprint race on Saturday, the first sprint race, in first place. So basically, his first race in Formula 2, he wins it. That's excellent. He was doing really well actually in the second sprint race as well, but unfortunately he had to retire from that, and he managed to come third in the feature race. So once again, as I'm saying, it's all about consistency, and consistency is what will make the difference in the Formula 2 championship. After that, we had Daruvalla. Daruvalla is in third place at the moment, so he finished second, fourth, and sixth. A little bit more about the whole consistency side of things, or the consistency angle. But that is where he is, and he's followed then by Piastri in fourth. Piastri is Australian, and he is Schwartzman's teammate, so he's basically replacing Mick Schumacher in the Prema team, and he was really impressive. He was better than Schwartzman throughout the weekend, which was a very big surprise to me, because I think Schwartzman is one of the drivers that will be challenging for the world title this year in Formula 2, or at least that's what I'm expecting, along with Zhao, as we see, is on the top, and I think Lundgaard also should be very, very strong. So Piastri was very impressive. In fifth place, we have Dan Ticktum. Ticktum had an interesting weekend once again. A couple of clashes that were primarily his fault, I would say. Some colourful language on the radio, and a solid enough result. He came second in the feature race, but it was kind of a mixed bag from him. He's a strong driver, but he's had his issues in the past, and now he's a part of the Williams Academy. Previously, he was a Red Bull driver, but they parted ways. We have Verschoor in sixth, Lundgaard in seventh, expecting better from him. Schwartzman in eighth, once again expecting better from him. In ninth place, we had David Beckman. David Beckman, also a rookie season in Formula 2. Very, very good result for him. He looked very strong throughout the entire weekend. Of particular note, I would say, in the first sprint race on Saturday, he had a third place finish, which was excellent. So his first race in Formula 2, he ends up on the podium as well. Really good from him. And in 10th place, Marcus Armstrong, also expecting quite a good season from him. So a little bit surprised to see him only in 10th place. And then, yes, we have 22 drivers in total in the Formula 2 championship. Then, before I end, just moving on to other racing series away from Formula 1 and Formula 2, looking forward to the next round of the Formula E after a very interesting opening round race that we had in Saudi Arabia. Additionally, the MotoGP is back up and running, and we've had 2 rounds of MotoGP, so thankfully something to fill the void of Formula 1 this weekend that's just passed. It looks very, very good for Yamaha. So 2 race wins for Yamaha. The first one was won by Viñales, and then yesterday it was Quartararo who won on his second race, I suppose, for the factory Yamaha team. And the Ducatis look supremely fast. They were like a rocket off the line for the last 2 races. Very, very good until the closing stages, where they kind of seem to get caught by Yamaha, and Yamaha seem to have good late race pace. And that's more a symptom of Viñales, I would say, but it was Quartararo also had the late race pace as well. So maybe this is a Yamaha thing. So they are doing very well at the moment, and once Marc Marquez comes back into it as well, I think it's going to be a really interesting World Championship. And so far, the Honda bikes haven't looked very strong at all. No particularly good finishes in the first two races from them. So one, we'll see what the Marc Marquez factor can bring into this, and number two, let's see where Honda actually are with their bike once we have I can't even say a decent rider on the team, because of course we have Espargaro on the Honda bike, and he hasn't been able to bring it home in a good position. So it doesn't look good for Honda, but Marc Marquez is completely something different. Okay, and that is everything from my side for now. We'll probably have another show towards next weekend, where we'll review the latest going-ons in the Formula One Championship. News, speculation, gossip, everything else like that. The things that keep the world going around for Formula One fans, and of course anything else that comes up in the other main motorsport series as well that we're all interested in. So thank you very much for joining me on this video. If you did join live, if you're watching later, it's also great to have you. Please like this video if you did indeed like it, and subscribe to the channel. We're hoping to grow as we move forward, as the season goes on as well. This is a fans channel. This is for the fans. It's all about your opinion. It's all about the opinion of the fans. We are not technical experts. We're just doing this for the love of the sport. Please feel free to leave comments as well. That will help to drive us forward as well. It'll give us more to talk about. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the debate that comes with that. So yes, at that, I will say thank you very much for joining us once again, and we look forward to seeing you in the future.